Alrighties, today we're going to make some feta and spinach scrolls. So I've got puff pastry, I need 2 sheets. I've got some feta cheese, some spinach, grated parmesan, I've got sesame seeds to be sprinkled over the top, and I've got 1 egg that I'm going to use as an egg wash. Let's get our filling done. So into a glass bowl, I'm going to put my spinach, but first I need to drain it, so I've got a sieve. Now I'm going to go over to the sink. My spinach is going to go into my sieve. I can give it a little rinse if it needs, but essentially what I'm trying to do is squeeze out all of that moisture in that spinach to make a really dry spinach mix. If I have too much liquid, it's going to make my scrolls really soggy and they're not going to be very nice. So that looks good, it's crumbly. I've squeezed out a lot of liquid. You can see how much has come out. And my dried spinach is going to go into my bowl. I can rinse my sieve, and now I'm going to get my cheeses going in. So I've got wet paper towel and a chopping board. Just because I'm not using a whole block of feta, I'm going to slice my feta. I need 120 grams, so I've just sliced that 120 grams off, and I'm going to crumble it into my mixing bowl with that spinach. Also going into the bowl is my feta cheese. Sorry, not feta, parmesan cheese. And I've got 1/4 cup of parmesan that I've measured out. So that looks good. I'm going to mix it up now with a wooden spoon. Trying to get everything incorporated, trying to get that feta cheese broken up. That's looking good. I still want a few little chunks of feta, but I need it to be well broken up, well incorporated so that I can spread it across my pastry. So that looks pretty good. All right, I'm gonna get my egg wash ready now. So I've got a china cup, a fork, and my egg. My egg is going to be cracked into that china cup. I always throw away the shells and wash my hands up after that as well. And I'm just going to whisk it in the china cup with a fork. Okay, that looks great. So I'm gonna get my pastry ready now. So this recipe will make 2 lots of scrolls, so 2 pastry sheets. So I'm gonna separate half of the mixture and leave that for the next sheet. So half of my feta mix going onto my pastry sheet. This is gonna get spread across in an even layer, and I'm gonna use a butter knife to do that. So I'm spreading it across. I'm trying to get it close-ish to the edges, but I don't want to go all the way over the edges. I can always trim the edges of the pastry sheet once it's all scrolled up. I'm leaving a bit of gap at the top of my sheet because I'm actually going to use that as the join. So starting from the side closest to you, I'm going to roll forward, working my way along the pastry sheet, and I'm trying to make a tight coil or a tight scroll. So that looks pretty good. Now I can trim those edges if there's no filling there, so I might do that now. Now my pastry is getting pretty soft, so I'm actually going to pop it in the freezer at this stage, maybe for 10 to 15 minutes. So this has come out of the freezer. This has been in the freezer for 15 minutes. I'm just giving a little marking on the top so I can see how big I am cutting. Just makes it a little bit easier for me to visualize so that they're around the same size. So it looks like I'm going to get about 10 scrolls out of this sheet, which is great. Remember, this recipe makes 2 coils anyway. So we're going to get about 20 little scrolls, so that's brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to get a baking sheet that I've lined with baking paper. I've sprayed a little bit of spray oil down on before I put the baking paper down. That just keeps it from sticking. And I'm going to leave a little gap around each of these scrolls just because they are puff pastry and they're going to slightly puff. Okay, so now it is ready for egg wash and sesame seeds. Now ideally I would use a pastry brush to coat these scrolls with the egg wash, but I don't have one on me, so I'm actually just going to use my fingers, but I'm using a glove. So if you don't have a pastry brush at home, you can still do this part, but ideally a brush works better. So this egg wash is going to make that pastry go really beautiful and golden, and it's going to stick the sesame seeds on top. So I'm just going to sprinkle those sesame seeds across the top of each of my little scrolls. They're going to get nice and toasty, and they're going to give a nice flavor as well. Okay, that looks good. So these are going to go in my oven. My oven is already preheated, so it's nice and hot. And I'm going to bake them for about 10-15 minutes, but until they go golden. So these have been baking for about 15 minutes. They look beautiful and golden and ready to eat.